What's good, everyone? Welcome back to My First Kicks. This is episode 160. That's right. I had the number wrong last week. This is episode 160. This week, I welcome Jason Faustino to the podcast. Now, if you aren't familiar with Jason, he currently works for a brand. If you look in the corner of my video, that's the hint. But it's funny because I've known Jay for a very long time, and we basically go down through memory lane of just how his influence on me helped me to appreciate and understand sneaker culture so long ago, and to what he's doing now and how that translates into everything that he does now, including to stuff that I'm doing now, because me and Jason just really connected or reconnected more recently, especially while doing this podcast and letting him just show me some really cool things back then that spurned into this creation of what we're both doing individually. I think it's a really good conversation and chat. So I'm really excited to get into the episode. Last week, thank you for everybody who jumped on and listened to my episode with KO, and also the previous week before that with Trayvon. I'm just as an update for everybody that's listening. I haven't been able to really post social clips on Instagram, so it's kind of like it was just like I don't know, the way that the clip AI that I use that cuts the episodes wasn't letting me download the clip onto my new phone, which is I have a new phone now, which is why you'll see different types of video now. But it wasn't letting me upload those clips onto IG, and I was getting really frustrated. So Trayvon's episode didn't get pushed. So that's why this week you have seen several other Trayvon clips along with KO's clips from last week. And I hope this doesn't happen again. But I'm trying to get better with the social stuff. It's very hard, just overall. And that's why last week I asked for some help. And I'm asking again, if you are a producer, a podcast producer, and you have time, hit your boy up. I am looking for someone to jump in and take on this undertaking so that I can add more of a presence for the podcast throughout the social medias. And doing everything by myself is not good for me in general, along with my everyday, because something falls to the wayside. And right now, the podcast is definitely not falling to the wayside. As you can see, we have been consistently dropping an episode every week. I'm also spending a lot of time finding people, but what does suffer is my social presence on all the social medias. So that's why we're here. So hit me up if you are interested. We can talk about it. Let me know. Would really love to bring somebody on board that can help me out here in the behind the scenes. So on to where you can find Jason. You can find him at um.jf13. Hit him with a follow, but also he does I don't know if it's a weekly newsletter. I know I am subscribed to his newsletter, but check out his newsletter, maracuya.substack.com. Now let me spell that out. marakuya.substack.com. Check it out. Also, if you're into movies, which is what we talk about on this podcast with Jason, follow him on Letterboxd. It's a good follow. He watches a ton of movies, and we talk about why he watches a ton of movies. I also have a Letterboxd, but it's pretty old, so I have to update it. I have to go back. I do also watch a lot of movies. And if you watch a lot of movies, share your Letterboxd in the comments of one of these clips that I post up for this week's episode. And you know where to find your boy. I am who is Haas on all social medias. Follow the podcast at My First Kicks Pod. Follow the podcast at My First Kicks on TikTok. And if you're watching this, or if you're listening and you want to watch this, go to youtube.com and look up My First Kicks. Very easy to find, or use the link tree in the description of this podcast. I am only at 190 subscribers. I'm trying to get that up so we can get monetized and I can hopefully pay for a studio eventually, because they're beating me in the head right now and it is not a good time. I thought I can get maybe one to two, 3 episodes in an actual legit studio and this year, and it's looking very slim. So with the help of everybody, if I can get this podcast monetized on all platforms, this can make the studio become a fruition. And I implore you all to subscribe, like, share, review everything that is dealing with this podcast. So thank you for listening. And on to this week's guest, Jason Faustino. Hey, Jay, welcome to the podcast.
How are you? Thank you for having me.
No, man, this is a long time coming. I remember first starting the podcast and being like, okay, I gotta make sure I get Jay on. And I think I hit you up real early, and you were like, I don't know about that.
No, I think it was just timing. Maybe it was last year, and I don't know. I don't know what else had going on, or maybe things were changing, and I don't know. I think it's better. I think there's more clarity, and plus I have better things to talk about a year later.
No, yeah, I mean, look, we definitely we linked back up in person at Complex Con the year before 2023. No, 2022.
Yeah,
And then that's when I was telling you, this would be it would be a great conversation because we have so much history. And then you didn't tell me that if you did or did not have a size 13 in the maybe tomorrows, and I did not leave with them, and I was so upset after that.
yeah. It was the 6,000s, right?
Yeah, it was that, and then I was also trying to get those the homeworks that
Mhm.
dropped too. Yeah,
You know
and
how it is in 13. It's like hit or miss.
mhm,
Sometimes we have them and not many to, you know what I mean? Like we don't have too many people that are 13, so it can be easy for you to get. And then other
mhm.
times we get one size 13, and then like the 3 people we know are all asking for it. So
Yeah, nah, yeah, it's all good. I know. Listen, you. I think it was like super early on. I think the when I first met you, and I went down to Extra Butter, and I tried to get the what's the first collab? The first one. It was it the Cotton Mouse. I think it was the Cotton Mouse.
the ASICs, yeah.
Yeah, and then you were like, I went there, and I specifically went there for that, and you were like, nah, man, I don't even think we got a 13. I was like, what?
No, we would have always got a 13, but it's just, people when you're not using like modern demand assessment and stuff like
Mhm,
that, like you're just guessing how many pairs of those extreme sizes, the very small, the very big sizes.
mhm,
And I feel like you always guess wrong. There's way more. Even though there's not a lot of size 13s, the size 13 people will find you if you have the
mhm.
pairs. It's the same with 14s. Like some people are like, oh, I only need one, but if it's something hot, like everyone that's a 14 is going to ask for it. So you might as well have just gotten a bunch more.
No, yeah, even like the dudes that have 15s, they'd be going on the treks. I know
Yeah.
DXC CEO or whatever his name is. I don't know his real name, but I know I follow him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is the only size 15 unlucky SBs." I'm like, "What?" Didn't even know they could even come out the size.
Yeah.
But for people who aren't familiar with you, how about you
Yeah.
introduce yourself?
Yeah. Jay or Jason, whichever. Last name's Faustino. Leading collaborations over at Saucony. Last
Yes.
5 years. As of last month, it was 5 years. So
Damn.
it's
Happy
definitely.
anniversary.
Thank you.
I mean, you brought tons of heritage to the brand, and we're going to talk about your sneaker story here. And that that which I will segue into the question that I ask everybody each week, and that question is, "What's your first kicks? What's that first pair of sneakers you absolutely needed to have?"
That was definitely AirTech Challenge 2,
Mm-hmm.
White Black Hot Lava Nike. I was a big Agassi fan. I can't tell if I liked. I can't remember if I liked him first or the shoe first. I think it was the shoe, to be
Uh huh.
honest. But then when I realized how much his personality, the whole bad boy rebel, getting in trouble, and well not being allowed to play in Wimbledon because he wore too much color, refused to
Mm-hmm.
wear all white. I actually think his stance on all white affected me from such a young age because I've never had an all white sneaker up until like maybe tomorrow. Jazz courts we did that were like customizable and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't wear like I've never had a pair of all white Air Force Ones. I know that's like a New York staple
No,
or a
yeah.
head just something everyone has in their collection, but I never did. Maybe it was the Agassi thing, but it was definitely the AirTech Challenge to white black hot lava.
No, yeah. Let me give a little description to the listeners here. This is the description from the 2019 re-release of the shoe. So, the Nike Air Tech Challenge 2 Retro Hot Lava 2019 reprises the 1990 original, which was designed for tennis star Andre Agassi. This iteration sees the silhouette with a white leather upper decked out with the hot lava swoosh and side panels that sport a lava-like splatter graphic. Below the shoe is cushioned by a visible Nike Air unit. This Hot Lava edition was released in May of 2019 alongside two similar colorways of the LeBron 16s. I don't know why I read that last part, but let's go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the re-releases have been great. I know when they retroed it, I don't know if it was 2007, 8. It was early in my extra butter days, I remember,
Hmm.
but I have some pairs, and then I know I still have the they made a varsity jacket, which is
Yeah.
crazy if anyone ever looks that up. I have that. I think I could say goodbye to a lot of sneakers these days that I
Hmm.
have, but that one I would never let go of.
Nah, that shoe is a freaking classic. And even
Yeah,
along with like learning how crazy Andre Agassi was of just, being on the court and then, the hair stuff of him, being like, I have to have a wig on for these, or people need to know me for my hair and stuff like that. Like he was such an
yeah.
identifiable character. And for him to have his own shoe was always like, it was just wild too.
Yeah, the other partnership he had was with Canon, like the camera company, but it was
Hmm.
the Rebel series, which just makes like perfect sense for Agassi's like own attitude towards a sport like tennis. So
Hmm.
everything about him, I was down with, but the sneakers went hard. I wore Agassi used to wear like denim, like cut off,
Hmm.
denim shorts with bike shorts underneath, and I would wear that too. I was pretty obsessed.
Did you
But yeah,
grow up playing tennis?
barely. I mean, I took some lessons here and there. It was never really my thing. I do like it, but
Hmm.
I mean, back then the sport was, I feel like so much more interesting because of personalities like him and McEnroe too. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, Agassi spoke to me back
I,
then.
I was always a Pete Sampras guy for some reason. I just love Pete Sampras.
Big serve.
Yeah, I mean, because when I played like he's like you, I played a little bit. I never was part of like a team or anything. Like, oh
Yes.
yeah, the school had a tennis program. Imagine that. But we would like for summer camp, they would always take us to like, Randall's Island or something like that, and they will have us taking serves and learning how to play tennis out there, and it was
Me,
like.
me, me and you have to take lessons from that dude Morgan on tennis.
I mean, I keep telling him I would beat him in pickleball, so I don't know if he's. And
I played that for the first time over Christmas break. Yeah, it was a little harder than I thought it would be.
I mean, I'm pretty athletic. Look, we can figure it out. We when you come up here, we'll we'll borrow a court. Let's see how bad we'll do.
Yeah.
um, so like, where majorly did you grow up, and what were like your biggest influences?
I was raised in Flushing, but I mostly grew up in Long Island.
Hmm.
So I think I was mostly like, yeah. Besides being inspired by New York in general, like it's
Hmm.
impossible not to be, and definitely still rep and proud New Yorker, even though I don't live there anymore. Um, I think my other inspiration was athletes, musicians, the
Mm-hmm.
same thing that other people would be inspired by. Between sports, music, and movies, I think that's always been a thing of mine, consistent throughout my life.
Mm-hmm. And like during high school, were you just the fly kid? Like what kind of like what got you? What was like your first steps into sneakers?
I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think anyone noted me for like what I was into from a fashion standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of I was a lot quieter than I think I already am. Um, I think every now and then people would notice I had kicks here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was like you got like one a year. So
Yeah.
you weren't really known for it unless you like someone that was getting sneakers like regularly around the clock.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have it like that. Um, yeah, I think people knew I was into music because I think my clothing style and music preferences changed all the time back then. Yeah,
Well, were
for
you
sure.
like a hip hop head first, or were you? Because I know you're into hardcore too. So like,
Mhm.
and I have that same like weird. Oh, I
Yeah.
got into this, and
I don't
so
know.
like,
I feel like rock and like heavy metal, or not even heavy metal, but like I don't know. Early memories besides pop would be like Guns N' Roses, but then
hmm
alternative stuff like Depeche Mode and like The Cure. But like I don't know. The stuff I think got obsessed with was hip hop, mostly New York based.
hmm
Tribe Called Quest, Black Moon. Um, like yeah, a lot of the Long Island like Rakim,
hmm
EPMD, but other Wu Tang, of course,
hmm
that was like full obsession. And then at the same time, I was very into like MTV's Alternative Nation, 120 Minutes. So a lot of alternative bands.
yeah.
I'd go to like a lot. My favorite thing in the world back then was going to Lollapalooza because you'd get a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of rock and metal and punk and all that stuff. So
hmm
um,
Your mom,
yeah,
well, your parents
huge
would let you go to Lollapalooza.
yeah, they would. I can't remember when my first like one of those junior or senior year. I remember I went to see Offspring at Roseland Ballroom, and
hmm
it's like kind of the first pit I was in. Um, I know it sounds funny now because they at the time they were like real punk, and then they changed to very poppy punk. But yeah, I mean I
Offspring
love.
was fire. All right, I get.
Oh,
I like Offspring.
it's not even a guilty pleasure. That album is incredible. So um yeah, no, I would go to concerts and shows like that. They let me go. I mean, it probably made it easier for my parents to let me go because I was straight edge, you know what I mean, or
hmm
still am straight edge. So I think they trusted me as long as I got home at a decent time,
Yeah.
and I wasn't a bad kid or anything.
Did the scene pull you into being straight edge or like?
It was the scene, like I knew about it. It wasn't like I was that into hardcore where I was following all the hardcore bands and straight edge bands. Like I
hmm
liked a lot of my local ones that went to you know, either from Long Island or school. Like I just liked going to shows, and so much of what hardcore bands stand for, like I thought was like really cool,
hmm
and straight edge being, a thing. But that's not what pulled me in. Like I didn't listen to a Youth of Today record and then go like I'm gonna be straight edge. Like it was I knew about it, and then it was I think junior year of high school, New Year after New Year's Eve. I'd seen the way my friends been acting with drugs and alcohol. And
hmm
I was drinking at the time, and I was like, this is just not for me. Like I wasn't mad at them. I didn't have any other big story or big reason. I was just like, I kind of like being in my raw, true self.
hmm
And I'm not that right now, but I'm gonna, thinking about moving forward, I was like, I think I'd rather just stay like that. Um, and I don't even remember when the decision came, but it was sometime after that New Year's. I was like, yeah, I'm not really into that stuff. And then I was like, I guess I'm straight edge.
You're there like I'm gonna go to my next show, make sure the X's stay on.
I never really did that. I mean, it was cool when I did go to a show and they put it on, but
uh
yeah, I wasn't looking like CM Punk out there.
well, he's injured now.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm watching him right now in the back corner. He's probably telling the world he can't make it to WrestleMania.
Look, I had to turn it off because I know I would be the same thing. I'd be like looking over there. But So then, I mean, like Long Island has like a
Yeah.
huge history in terms of just like music. I mean, MF Doom's from there, and
Yes.
um, but like, and then third base, and no, wait, not third.
Yeah.
Yeah, third base is half of third base.
Well,
Not
yeah, definitely.
wait,
Huh?
Search was from Long Island,
Yeah.
right?
If
Yeah,
he
yeah.
wasn't from, I forget my like culture now. I don't remember anything. If he
I
was
I just
from, he
yeah.
lived or he's referenced Long Island. So
Yeah, the the one thing I remember him saying, I think it was either that he would bike to Dumoulin house from where he lived, and then, but I don't remember where he was living at the time. I think he said he was living at Washington Heights or something like that. He would bike from Washington Heights all the way to Long Island and hang out with the Dumoulins. And you'd be
yeah,
like,
if
no.
people don't aren't familiar with Long Island that listen to here, it's just like I think it gets a bad rep for, like, do you want to go to the city, New York City or
Hmm.
Long Island? Yes, I understand you want to be live in the city or rep the city, totally get it. But I think that pull and that like distinction between Long Island and New York City is what made Long Island so dope. There are people, like the aforementioned artists that
Hmm.
wanted to prove themselves so bad. I feel like you're so hungry and starving for culture in Long Island, and
Hmm.
you're feeling all the energy from the city. And some people, I think, carry that from Long Island and become one with the rest of New York. So I think that's cool. And at the same time, for me, like it's just the way I was wired, or maybe because of the way I was raised. But I also like that I have, a little bit of distance and a break from from the city as well. So that just ends up being like, I think, a lot of the way I operate in life. I don't know. Maybe Long Island shaped me in that way, but I think I have that same sort of hunger and willingness to sort of compete or prove myself as other Long Island people did in their respective art forms and lines of work.
Yeah, I mean, what? So then, what propelled you into the career path? Like, because I mean, we talked a little bit about it. You worked at Extra Butter, but before that, like, what was your first job, and then what made you want to realize, okay, this is what I want to do, and stuff like that.
The first job is actually Sam Goody, if you remember.
Of course, I remember
His,
Sam Goody. I used
yeah,
to go in there all the time.
yeah. I mean, I'm so old that when I would go there, it was only music and like the very little movies. But all music
Hmm.
stores eventually turned into like selling all sorts types of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sam Goody. So I like really was into the music thing for a long time, and not until midway point of college when I'm forced to do internships is I'm starting to work in the social work field,
Hmm.
mostly with autistic kids, and I really really like that. So first job out of college was working with autistic kids. Then I moved to foster care,
Hmm.
and then I moved to I don't know how else to say it, but I was working like social work programs that were connected to I was nearby, like nearby where I grew up with, but with like not regular. I don't want to say that word, but with high schools and middle schools, and like I
Yeah.
had different sort of programs. Some of them involved counseling programs. Some of them were
Hmm.
recreational programs. Like I was kind of there to service kids that wanted different outlets for things. Like I had a breakdance club. I had
Hmm.
kids that had to see me because they had what do you call it, community service hours to fill. And
Hmm.
you know what I mean, like I had all different um like after school detention, like discussion groups and stuff like that.
No, these are all great programs that I think they need to be a lot more easier to find. I think back then there it was either like you had to do it and that was it. Like I mean, I
Yeah,
remember getting like out out what is it outhouse no at home suspension, yeah, and
yeah,
then in order to like come back in you had to do your little 2 hours or something to
yeah,
talk to somebody and stuff like that, and I don't know
yeah.
if that's a lot more easier to find now even with the internet, but I also think that you got to be receptive to that, and that is definitely tough, especially for kids
Yeah.
now.
The funny thing is a big reason I stopped social work is,
Hmm.
so one, I wanted to study for my GREs to so I can go now pursue a master's in either social work or psychology, because
Hmm.
I'm just not getting to where I wanted to with the bachelor's degree. And I never liked, well, I didn't like a lot of my like bosses or supervisors when I was in social work. Some I liked, some I didn't, and I was like, well, the only way I'll ever be in charge of those people is if I get my master's. But yeah, big reason for leaving social work. I remember I was working in a high school, and like one problem I consistently had throughout my career, at every stage of social work, is I would wear sneakers to work.
Yeah.
Like I think for a time being, I bought some. I think I bought something at Cole Haan, and
Hmm.
I think I also bought a shoe at Aldo. Like I had something that the like two shoes I remember being like, okay, these are my non sneaker dress shoes.
Yo,
Or
Kohan with the
yeah,
Lunar Grand
not
shoes.
that.
You know.
I wish it would if that was back then when I needed it and was
Uh-huh.
working, I would have I would have been wearing those and been fine with it. But no, I was like in pain when I would have to not wear sneakers back in the day. So I would always
Hmm.
wear sneakers, and then I think because I, found ways to dress a little bit younger. Um, I remember one time I went to this school, it was at Elwood High School, and um, yes, like vice principal and security guard, like they
Hmm.
kicked me out because they thought I was one of the kids, like trespassing and whatnot. I was like, bro, I'm like 20, I think I was 26, 27 at the time.
uh
Yeah, something like that. And I'm like, I
You're
know
too
I have that
fresh for
young,
them.
huh?
You're too fresh for them.
Yeah, I really wasn't. I wasn't dressed like a kid, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess the sneakers, and then like the kids would talk to me about gear too, because
Hmm.
I don't know, that was like a thing we had in common, and like probably helped them form like some trust and have
Yeah.
a relationship with me because I wasn't just some other person telling them what to do. I was
No,
like
yeah, it's definitely.
kind of
I think
normal.
it like lowered their shield down because they can see you as like you're not some just overbearing status figure or somebody that's going to try to push them down. You were seeing them at the same level because they felt like they're talking to somebody that's like them that knows a little bit more. And so it's not like it doesn't seem like, oh, I have to be against the authority, I guess
Exactly.
bring it back to wrestling.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it's really interesting. It really goes full circle because I
Hmm.
remember I was used to break dance at this park that's nearby, Red Arts Footwear, where I eventually got started, and
Hmm.
I just walked in there. I'd always see if they had like new Dunks or Air Max. I wasn't too into Jordans at the time,
Hmm.
especially since back like at the time I was shopping it, like they were into like 17, 8, like it wasn't the stuff I liked, fours and
Hmm.
fives and sixes
Yeah.
and all. Anyway, like, and I saw one of the kids that would attend my like after school programs and groups, and I remember he used to make fun of me because he didn't know what I was wearing.
Hmm.
He was into Jordans and Air Forces. Like I would wear Vandals and Dunks, and he didn't really know what they were, and I had to put them on. And eventually, I think he realized he's like, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about." I was just like lurking on Nike Talk, and then I would go into the city, mostly Classic Kicks, A Life,
Hmm.
DQM, and shop, and I would tell him that that's where I was getting stuff. And then one day he like goes and gets the owner, and he's like, talk to talk to Jason, like I know him from my high school, and he's like, you should work here, basically. And I was like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Like, so I just yeah, I just started
Was
working there.
it well, one, I gotta know how'd you explain this to your parents of being like,
No,
yo, I'm a not do social work anymore. I'm working at a sneaker store.
yeah, yeah. I don't remember how it came out, but I just know it wasn't good. Like, you know, kind of typical Asian parents. Like, I'm already messing up not being in like nursing school or like, you know what I mean, on my way to being a doctor, and now I'm even getting rid of the social work thing, and literally working for minimum wage at the time.
Hmm.
Um, at a sneaker store, and then it got worse because it went from like you're just part-time minimum wage at a sneaker store. It's like now I'm full-time, like I'm really committing to this, you know what I mean? Like open to close more than 40 hours a week. It was crazy. I don't think they didn't realize it was like my grad school though, like I
Hmm.
I was deep in the learning, between what I learned at that store. I would go every time I wasn't working, I would go to the city, and I mean just lurk. Like I was
Hmm.
lurking to see how people operated their shops. the only one of the like the big resources at the time, the Freshness Mag, Sneaker Freaker. I
Hmm.
learned a lot from them. Whenever they interviewed store owners, I would like read those religiously. Um, so yeah, it was my crash course in learning how to start my own thing, and then
I'm definitely super curious because, like, I mean, you talked about like the baby Renarts, like being a baby at Renarts, and I mean, now they're expanding and such, but the you got to see like the I want to say this is when the internet made sneakers explode into this huge community and culture. And now you're being, this sponge, going to other places and seeing how stuff is done too. Like, what were you able to see that people, I think, they take for granted now, but you look at it back and you're like, wow, I can't believe this, I was there for that.
I honestly, everyone who's similar to me in this life, I just feel for them, but I give them all the credit because you're just able to see stuff way ahead of time. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's not some psychic stuff. You can just kind of pull on needs and collective, consciousness and what people are like really into. And like if there's energy behind the way it felt like 20 of us on Nike Talk were all gunning for like one sneaker, I was like, well, it's only going to be more infectious. Like more
Hmm.
people are going to be into it, and the more get out, like it's a combination of finding out on the internet and finding out in person. There's like a lot more people into the things that you're into. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And just being able to take that and then say, like my vision for Extra Butter was like, here I am working at this store and they are not serving that customer at all. They're not even getting that type of product. Like you can find gems in line here and there, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because like good Air Maxes used to be in the catalog, or like
Hmm.
even Saucony, like finding like we had a good business with Jazz, but I'm like, maybe we should try these shadows, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And like now you're finding like a customer for those things. Um, it was just only natural to say like, what if we put it in its own concept and like mirror what I was seeing in the city, and
Hmm.
a few other parts of the United States with like Undefeated, and I don't know, there weren't too many boutiques back then, you know what I mean, like
Hmm.
globally, but just a few of those, and then you figure like there's already three or four in New York City. Like, why couldn't one exist in Long Island, where people like me were taking the train to the city every weekend to shop at those stores and check
Yeah.
out what new. So that was sort of my approach. We considered opening in New York City first, but it just felt more natural to open in Long Island. But yeah, like the game of convincing people that something is going to happen before it's actually like fully there is something I think I've just grown used to my entire life.
No, yeah, you're definitely one of the like original tastemakers that in my world, right? Where I remember when Extra Butter first started and people in NSB was like, "Yo, this crazy, it's a concept store," and I'm obsessed with concept stores. Like my favorite store of all time is DQM. I love Dave. I had Dave on the podcast. Like he
So
is one of the biggest influences in my life, and like,
it was a huge influence to me.
yeah, he's amazing, and it's wild that I'm able to talk to him still. So, like, being able to go from it's just some dude on the forum to a dude, a podcast that could talk to Dave Ortiz is like I already just fulfilled one of my childhood fantasies, right? The But I remember reading about the store and being like, "Yo, it's a movie theater, a concept store," and I was like, "What? I love movies. What? I love sneakers." And so, I remember trying to convince my boy because my boy Joey, he would always be like, "Yo, whenever you want to go to a sneaker store, let me know. We're out." So I wanted to go to Long Island, but I never made the trek. And so when they finally opened downtown, that's when I went down there, and that's when I finally met you. When I first met you.
Yeah, that I feel bad for people that are into that brand but did like into Extra Butter but didn't experience the Long Island thing, because
Hmm.
that's like where all the soul was,
Yeah.
like I mean creating it, like I like super inspired. I don't know if you, I mean you said SBs, but like Legendary Store Special Sauce sneakers and
Hmm.
Bayshore Long Island, and they just had so much culture at that store, like people playing chess. I would go there to break dance. I met my wife there, um, attending like breakdance sessions.
Hmm.
But like that's what I wanted to do with extra butter, but in my own way. I just thought, what better way is it to like earn a living, but also have it like reflect your lifestyle, invite other people in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So a space that we, I mean, did breakdance, but just opened up for creativity of all sorts. Obviously, watched a ton of movies there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the vision. Like, but like it would never pretend it could exist without special sauce, without DQM,
Mm-hmm.
scene concept, without a life. You know what I mean? Like those things were forming as I was just having ideas of like
Mm-hmm.
what it'd be like to open a store. Those guys all were part of everyone's blueprint today.
No, yeah, and I mean, I have an obsession, like I said earlier, with boutiques, and it's sad that we're in this realm that there. I feel like it's either everybody becomes Kith, or there's no real identity unless you're like Bodega. But even I feel like Bodega strips away some of that like speakeasy element from their store. Everybody knows it's a speakeasy now. Like I remember reading in Sneaker Freaker people being like, yeah, it took me an hour to figure out that you had to go to the vending machine. I was just like, it took an hour. um, but you know what? It's wild that you're saying that you helped open Extra Butter because I didn't even know that. But
Oh, you
the
didn't?
no, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
That's
So.
like, I mean, yeah, not to take credit or whatever, but like, I had like I literally go to the owners of Rent Arts and say like, I need you to make me a business card so I could attend this trade show. Like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I can't attend the trade show without like some sort of validation that I'm legit, you know? And they're like, what are you going to the trade show for? And I was like, well, I was learning, you know, from, I consider themselves like mentors, from the people at Fruition in Las Vegas
Mm-hmm.
about what it was like for them to open a store. And told me about Magic Trade Show. And this is where all the, you know, streetwear brands, you know, some footwear brands would show up there. And that's how you find out about what's coming out and form relationships. I was like, all right, I got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it was like, what are you going to do? I was like, well, I'm going to open a store and it's going to be based off movies because that's my like, you know, the thing that I did instead of going to frat parties when I was in college. And I don't know, like I just had the whole theme in my mind, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, I liked basing a private label and different sneaker concepts over movies. I love the idea of like little parts of the movie theater inside of a sneaker store.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. All of it just was like a vision to me. But, you know, I ended up partnering with my partners at the time because they were like, you can't just go to any sneaker brand and say like, can I open an account? Like you need credit lines and
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So even though I had been meeting a lot of people at brands from, you know, sitting in on buying meetings and stuff, like it definitely fast tracked Extra Butter to opening once we already, you know, on day one had product there because
Mm-hmm.
I was able to tell like sneaker brands, like we already have a Nike account, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's sort of got it by way of grandfather in, and then streetwear brands also they were really psyched when they were like, you're not just some random kid opening a new store. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna have Nike, Reebok, you know, Saucony, Asics from day one, like that,
Mm-hmm.
Adidas, like whoever else, like that made a big difference. But then everything from there, I felt like, you know, really had to earn it. At the time, they didn't just, I mean, it's probably still like this now, but Nike and other brands, they're not trying to give you quick strikes and collabs or anything
Nah.
unless you really
Yeah.
have like something special going on in your store. And that's
Mm.
why, you know, we spend so much time creating that culture and creating that energy and building that consumer up and having the lines and managing those releases all the time until,
Mm-hmm.
you know, one by one each brand was like, you guys are doing it out there in Long Island. Like normally they just have that like big city approach and they say that's not really a need to put like the better product there. No one's
Mm-hmm.
out there in Long Island. They go to New York City for that. And I was like, no, they're out here and we'll show you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the approach. But I know I don't talk about it much these days, but like,
No, yeah. I mean, but
yeah, I think the
it's
more people dig into various aspects of my personality, you're just like, wait, that entire store's DNA is your, you know, like your brainchild. So yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, it makes 1,000% more sense to me now, especially seeing and being there for so like for as many years as I've been going there. Uh, it's wild the trajectory from that too, because like as you're telling me this, I was just like, what made you so curious to know more and do more? Because if anybody, I would say to be honest, I mean, look, this may be shitting on a ton of people, but I think anybody in your position at that time would just be like, "I'm fine with this. I was gonna, I was assuming manager at there at Renards at the time,
Yeah.
uh, and just be like, oh, cool, I'm a manager, whatever, and then not build upon that. What made you just be like, you know what, I'm gonna actually do something beyond
I
this?
mean, I think I'm, I spoke to being like, I just like see things like you have like visionary, if you want to call it, it
Hmm.
sounds like I'm talking myself too highly, but I don't know. I was just able to see exactly what extra butter is,
Hmm.
like I'm able to see the culture that we created, the being able to do collabs like we ended up doing. I mean, they were dreams, but I felt like they were attainable dreams. So I
Legend, you forgot the word legendary collabs. All right.
thank you. But yeah, like that's, I don't know. That's just what I don't really know other way. Plus, I'm very big on like I can't look at something that I love without seeing all the things that I hate about it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so when
I'm
you think
with you.
about,
I'm with you with podcasting right now. I'm
yeah,
100% with you.
I got you. But that's like, I would just have too many bad experience at sneaker stores that I was like, we need more boutiques out there. But then
Hmm.
even the boutiques, not to shit on them, like again, I feel like they raised me in a weird way. But like I didn't love this experience of going into those stores in
Hmm.
New York City. Like I loved them for like the wonder and all the new stuff I was put onto, but like the actual experience, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it's not known for its customer service, but
No,
like
yeah, you had to,
just
you had
not,
to, you had to
yeah.
grind it out. To be honest, like you had to be like there every week, and then they go, "Oh shoot, what's good?" And then you
Yeah.
get the familiarity, and you're
I
like,
like
yeah,
that aspect of it to
uh,
be honest, but it's just not how I am. You know what I
hmm
mean? So and like I don't think, like the tone, I don't know what it's like now, but when during
no,
the time,
everybody's nice. Everybody's trying to make a sale. That's
yeah,
what it is now.
during my time at Extra Butter, like, and especially opening Long Island, like, we're not trying to be better than anyone. You know what I mean? Like, we're like very open door. Like, I'd rather educate. Maybe that's the social work side of me.
Hmm.
So I always maintain that. Yeah, it's just like, and then transitioning to Saucony, it was like,
Hmm.
well, one, I wanted to leave Extra Butter for reasons I'm not going to go into,
No, no, no. You don't have to.
but I wasn't sure what. Like I thought I was going to pursue hockey or movies or
Hmm.
I don't know, different things. I'm into. I think what I've learned at Extra Butter and even now at Saucony can be applied to all different stuff. But I yeah, like I got the call one day that a position open at Saucony. It's small team. I didn't even know at the time. I mean, I'd interviewed with one other company.
Hmm.
It was New Balance, and they didn't know whether I interviewed on both sides. They were like, "We don't know if we should hire you on the product side or the marketing side." And I was like, "I don't know either." But but
To be honest, I think when I remember you posted because I followed you. Yeah, you let me follow you. This is how I'm putting it. You let me follow you after we met and I was coming through, and then after that, you were like, I think you posted that, yeah, I'm out of there, and I was just like, what? And then I was like, oh, he's probably, he does amazing sneakers. He's gonna do something dope like New Balance or something like that. And I was thinking I was like, Jay's going to New Balance, and then I guess a year later, you were like, "Nah, I've been at Saucony for a year." I was just like, "Oh snap!"
yeah, no, it was just opportunity. I mean, like, yeah, love those guys at
Hmm.
NB, and they've had the most phenomenal run, and there still are
Hmm.
running. But like, yeah, it was just the opportunity at Saucony was like, it's a small team. Yes, it's a marketing position, even though you can't figure it out. But like, you'll be able to get your hands on it, like on
Hmm.
everything. And I was like, that sounds about what, right? You know what I mean? So just jumped into that, and I remember Eric Smolin. he's at 47 now, but he was the PLM at the time at Saucony, to convince people to hire me because I didn't have a formal background with
Right,
like,
yeah. You got a crazy background. You coming from social work and extra butter and red
yeah,
art.
they knew I knew the consumer and they knew I knew product, but then they're like the other thing Eric said to them about me, which I'll never forget. And I kind of look for the same thing in people
Hmm.
is like Eric said, he was like, he's got a chip on his shoulder because
Hmm.
of, leaving extra butter and wanting to prove, I'm on like my third different life,
Yeah.
after social work, and extra butter is like my third go at like a new career. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't forget that. And I know I've carried that energy into the stuff I do at Saucony.
No, yeah. I mean, you're on a tremendous run, and the idea of just the idea now, like it does make sense a lot more, especially when people start getting to know you. That you do have this like chip on your shoulder of just being like, nah, I'm gonna make this thing happen. And I think, like that's what that's see. I guess that's maybe we just answered my question because it does. It's like I don't want to be here if I have an idea. Not like I don't want to be stuck. Like you to me, it's like you don't want to plateau ever. Like if you know there's always room above, and I think a lot of people settle for that plateau and think that all right, we're right here, like I'm good, like I don't need to work harder, I don't need to find the next thing. And even though finding the next thing can sometimes seem like, oh, I don't know what's next, and that is what's stopping you, I feel like you look at it as being like that's the adventure part. Like we don't like we're about to make something happen, and
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
comfortable in that zone.
yeah. What makes it comfortable for you? Because I think that's like the hardest part for people. Because I'm curious of like, was it your family that put these ideologies into your head, or is it just like the people around you, or is it just like a
I,
scene?
Probably, I'll always give respect to my parents, even though
Mhm.
they frustrated me growing up. Like they wanted me to do, not just do the right thing, but work hard. And they didn't care about anyone else like comparing myself to. They were just like, you just have to do the best that you can do.
Mhm.
Like maybe they put it in my head, maybe I was born this way, but you just know when you can give a little bit more than the next person. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I started to use that as my advantage. But like, also, I think it's just growing up. Like this is it's not. It's gonna sound cliche, but this is life as a person of color. Like
Mhm.
you realize you're different from people. The majority of people throughout your life. You realize that some of those things and the ways you're different can be an advantage. Like
Mhm.
in sneakers and things related to culture, that was an advantage that I knew of that stuff. Like I knew cultural context to things and just had an eye for, and developed taste for, I don't know, cooler shit than others. I don't know
Mhm.
how to describe it, but like, yeah, that's the type of thing you just focus on, like whether it's a combination way I was raised and just, I don't know, way I was born. But yeah, I'm forgetting the actual question now, but like that's,
what put this chip on your shoulder? Like, how did you
oh
learn
yeah,
that?
yeah.
That
I
that.
don't know. It's just that, and like I mean, I think also as being introverted, like you
Hmm.
don't, like I just don't say a lot, especially when I was younger. So if
Hmm.
anyone doubted me, I had no other way to prove them wrong. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't gonna get into a debate or argument with the person. I was just like, all right, like I'll show you what's up. You know what I
You
mean?
led
Like
by example.
it,
You put them in their place by example.
Exactly. So I don't know the chip on my shoulder. Like I can't, like I said, I can't look at a lot of things without seeing what's wrong with it, and wanting to
Hmm.
fix it. And then,
But
you
I
know,
think that's attributed to, I mean, being introverted because you're observing everything. You're not really having a commentary on a ton of things, but you're like, oh, I'm gonna just sit here and pay attention and see what's going on. Because I mean, simple example, we could easily talk about when we just met recently at Complex Con. You took instead of you being within the booth with J Tips, you just watched everybody come and give J Tips his flowers. And that like I mean, I see that you're appreciated because we talked about it. You're appreciate there. We talked about your appreciation for that because you put in the spotlight on him, and people are accepting that he has a spotlight,
yeah,
and you're just watching how people maneuver and talk to him and be like, hey, this is bringing validity to everything that we're doing right now. So yeah.
I miss that part about New York. I miss that part about having a store. Like I am an intense lurker. I like
Hmm.
to observe like crazy. I think I could. I think I'm picking up on energy. Obviously, I'm observing physical attributes of what people are wearing and whatnot, but
Hmm.
people's style. But I think I'm picking up on way more. And yeah, like that's a position I like to be in. It can be draining, you know what I mean? Like I think you've probably noticed that extra part. Like I'm either very present or you cannot find me because
Hmm.
I need to disappear into like
Oh
my
yeah, there was several times I was like, "Is Jay here?" And they're like, "Nah, he's in
yeah.
the back." It was like,
I can't get certain things done or I can't
um,
even complete or see like certain thoughts without having that like isolation. So it's just a balance.
no, yeah. Look, what was it? Because I'm very curious about your first year at Saucony, and like,
Mhm.
was it just this huge culture shock, and or also were you like, okay, I guess I can't buy anything else now, I got to be like fully into this brand, like,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think of it as like the buy. I can't buy any other brands. Although, like,
hmm,
if anyone ever looked through my storage, I have like equal love for like so many brands. I have
hmm,
like I really don't think there's one dominant. I mean, maybe Nike has the most pairs over time, but like
hmm,
I have so many pairs of other brands or secondary brands, whatever, that yeah, like it didn't trouble me too much going to a brand because the not being able to wear other brands because even when I was at Extra Butter, I seen people that work for brands like still buy stuff from our store of other
hmm.
brands and they're like, I still wear other stuff on the weekends and whatnot. So and plus sometimes it's just like you need to have something even though you're
Hmm.
not going to wear it, you just need to have it. So I
Hmm.
didn't let that trouble me too much and like honestly, I look back, there's so many weird things that I didn't know my career would end up this way, but I always loved Saucony as the underdog brand. I always loved their catalog. Like,
Hmm.
I just thought that, like, okay, like even if I have to be wearing it 24/7, I'm okay with I'm okay with it.
and was it a huge culture shock for you? Because I
Oh, the culture
mean,
shock part,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was. I remember when I they flew me up to have an interview, and I like walked around the office a bit, and I noticed it didn't look the way I thought it might look. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I the only other office that I looked like visited to that. Oh, I had visited New Balance, but I remember I'd recently had visited Adidas too, just
Hmm.
visiting friends, and it looked a lot different than it did at Saucony. So it was a little bit shocking. And then obviously when I first got in there, I felt that way. But I don't know. It's same as Long Island. I mean, there was only one other like sneaker boutique at the time, but
Hmm.
um, I was like, okay, no one's really gonna know what the hell this thing is, this movie theater slash sneaker store. But like,
Hmm.
I was like, I'm comfortable with that. Like, I'm just gonna get in there and make it happen. And if someone asks me, like, I've got answers for you. And same thing with Saucony, like I think I stood out. I still think I stand out and do things different, but
Uh-huh.
happy to educate people. And if they're not willing to be educated, you're just going to see through the work, how it
Yeah.
has impact. So
I definitely think that is, especially last year, just even encompassing last year, where you showed everybody, oh, we are here. I think that the everybody's saying, J Tip sneaker of the year. You had several viral moments off of the shoe. What is it? Because and I will tell you a story of the first initial release, but you know, people the Azura that he dropped, that you guys dropped, that shoe made crazy waves, right? And what was it to come to that point, and like, were you just like, oh, I know this is gonna go crazy, and then it went crazy, like, that thought
there's
process?
no one moment, I
Mm-hmm.
knew when I had my eye on J Tips and the energy was, the noise he was making in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, I think for me it was I don't know, it's just when he started to put his shoe together, I was like, okay, this thing's kind of crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, this is only a couple years ago. Like, no shoe is something that you haven't seen before. Like, you've seen crazy. I mean, Jeremy Scott exists. You've seen crazy. You've
Yeah.
seen simple. Like, good is good, no matter which end of the spectrum you're at with that
Hmm.
stuff. Um, but I just like the person a lot. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I felt like this is some one that other people would rally behind too. I already saw how New York was rallying behind him, but now you
Hmm.
start to view it as like, will the world be able to relate? Um, and then like, yeah, like this is probably not a surprise to anyone, but when we got those first maps, like the maps are like the designs he puts together before we send them off for sampling. And I was like looking through them and I was like, man, this shit says remember who fronted. I was like, this is my guy. That's another one of those chip on your shoulder. I was like, this is too
Yeah.
good. He had other sayings too, but I was like, yeah, I don't really tell collaborators what to do, but I'm going to tell them to go with this one, like the
Hmm.
remember who fronted, because I knew if I can get behind it in this same sort of way, other people would too. And yeah, I don't know. There wasn't a defining moment. There's like several moments while we were building things that I'm like, okay, I think this is going to be dope. Oh, I think this is going to be bigger than I thought it was, like over and over and over again.
Hmm.
So,
What?
um,
Because I'm curious because you did a bunch of collaborations. You got the Frank
yeah,
Cooker,
yeah,
which I'm still eyeing. I got to get those, and the Raised by Wolves. Maybe tomorrow's the Claima stories. This ramp up to where you're going. Where is it cloaked in trying to bring back sneaker culture, like the pure essence of sneaker culture? This, like, because I want to me, and this is I want to just, I guess, could commend you for this. To me, when I saw these releases, it reminded me of like that originals Clerk pack where you're just like, yo, I'm gonna work with these couple brands right here that not many people know about, but I know they're going to do something crazy with these shoes. Come on, the Azuros from Raised by Wolves are super amazing. You got the
oh yeah.
last year, the crystal. I always say Crystal Castles. Is it Crystal Castles?
No, that's a band that
I know,
I
yeah.
go on. It's Crystal Caves.
Crystal Caves, yeah, yeah, and those are crazy as well. And then picking Beamer's brain, which he worked with Just John, who creates Beignet Boys, and
Oh yeah,
that's a new, definitely up and coming brand too, because his stuff is amazing as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like I said, for me, it's like it's just so reminiscent of like that Clerks pack of just you just touching people on the shoulder and be like, yo, you could do something crazy with this shoe.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in a in the sneaker world and in the boutiques we go to. I mean, someone has to be willing to give Saucony a chance, right? We're the
Hmm.
smaller brand on those walls and whatnot, and it's only fitting that like it would work for our collab partners, the
Hmm.
same way. Like, I think I heard like Welty and Dunn say at one of their podcasts, like if they're so excited at what Saucony did with J Tips, and they're like, if they did with J Balvin, no disrespect or anything, with Travis Scott, like it wouldn't have worked. I forgot what they
Uh,
said or who they said, but they cited that it wouldn't have worked, and I agree to some degree it would not have worked, or it wouldn't
hmm.
have popped off the way J Tips did, because that's like we share something like special together, and I think
Hmm.
we do with Bima, with Tom Bogo, with maybe tomorrow Jordan from Color Club, like so on and so forth. I can go down the list. Like I look for those attributes that make it make sense for soccer. They didn't have to be an OG Saucony head. They don't have to
Hmm.
have the same amount of Sauconys that like Sergey and the Russian Saucony team guys have. It's not about that. It's more there's different aspects of their personality and like values that I think line up with who we are, and then the trajectory that I just see our brand on and their
Hmm.
brand on. Like I look for that alignment.
I mean, is really dope. I love that. I love the message, and it's what I think is so dope is that and I commend this for you as well, is that like I don't know if I took this, if this is just part of me or part of like this hive brain that we have of like when we get into a scene, we just like we really jump into it, and I think that like there's not that many people that do that now in general. Like when I first got into hardcore, I was listen, I was Glassjaw all day. I went to go see Glassjaw at Warsaw, you know, like Glassjaw is one of my favorite bands. And then learning about that scene and explain like how it expands. Like you got Deftones, you got, you know, I'm trying to remember everybody else from that era. But like everybody to me, I think what I really loved about that scene was like community. Everybody was it wasn't like, oh, you're too cool. Like I'm too cool for you. You can't be in the pit with me. Like it wasn't nothing like that. It was all like everybody's hugging each other and being like, hey, what's up? Like, oh snap, I saw you at the last show. And I think that was dope about sneaker culture. It was like you go to these stores and everybody was like, hey, what's going on? You was on that line the other like last week, and
I
you
don't know
know.
how people are like people that don't have hobbies or things that they're obsessed with. I don't know
Mhm,
how they live life, like honestly. So yeah, anything you get into, like if I can teach kids anything, I don't even know how you teach this, but you just have to hope that they fall in love with something and like
mhm,
get real obsessed with it. So and I think from there, it's only natural you find those community. A lot of people shit on the way things are happening now or these
mhm.
days with like the internet and social media, but like that's all good too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like people have met people because they've interacted on social media, sold each other shoes, whatever, and then got to
Mhm,
know each other in real life and are friends that way as well. Like I community's community, even if it's like digital. I mean, I would always like if someone had to make me choose, I would choose in person for sure. But
mhm.
online has helped introverts like me as well, and I'm sure countless others. So yeah, that community aspect is so important. But like, yeah, like I don't think people spend, or maybe our society, or like we don't emphasize that people should really fall in love with stuff and develop passion for the
Mhm.
things that they like, because they could develop into all these different things, whether it's just
Right.
meeting a bunch of new friends or you fall into the career of it, which is, I'll always advocate if I'm, if there's another mission I have besides what I do at Saucony, it's like I want to inspire and like teach or mentor youth in that way,
Mhm,
because, it's like our world is like, it's great, but it's pretty miserable. And like, I think the
mhm.
root of many people's misery is not doing something that they love for a living.
Facts.
And
Yeah.
so if people can find that thing that they love, I don't care what it is, sneakers, whatever it is, creating content, like whatever it is, podcasting,
No, no,
I
no, no, no. Stop
I
with the podcast. Stop with the podcast.
I push people to go in on what they're obsessed with,
Mhm.
because I'd rather them do that later in life than do something that they're not happy about and contribute to more, you know,
Yeah.
misery in this world. I know it's a dark way of looking at it, but
No, I mean, I think that's a practical way of looking at it because I'm always a big believer of the world's gonna keep telling you no, you can't do it, right? And it's on to you to change your destiny because you can easily fall into that and then, just end up becoming nothing. And that's like, and if you look at it any other way, it's tough to be like, okay, I'm gonna get like everybody always has this get it out the mud mentality. I think that's like, or especially if you're from immigrant parents, it's like you're being pushed down. Like, no, you got to be more successful than me. You got to keep doing it. And that becomes such a burden on you that you think that, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not living up to their expectations, and that also brings you down. So like we're always surrounded by these like dark clouds that are trying to push us down. And I do believe in finding something that you love, falling in love with it, and if you fall in love with it so much, you would want to see change in it, and then become the change that you want to see. Because when we fall in love with something, whether it be a hobby, profession, or anything like that, you're gonna see things that are wrong with it instinctively, right? Instinctively, and and you're gonna want to change it. So how do you do that? You become the change. You become the person that makes that change, and that's the only way you can get out of this so-called mud, in my opinion.
bro, that is word right there.
I,
You might have to put that on your something, because that is the message people need to hear for sure.
I'll do it. Nobody likes my motivational stuff when I ask questions on content, so that's why my numbers are bad.
No, well, I don't know how numbers work and all that. That's business. So
But Jay, I got one last question
yeah,
before
yeah,
you get out of here, and that question is going to need a little bit of visualization. I don't know if you
yeah.
listen to an episode, but I want you to think back to younger Jay as he was about to open that box of the Hot Lava Andre Agassi's AirTech Challenge 2s, and now you're you back in time behind yourself. What would you tell your younger self as he opens that box?
Um, I think I was literally telling myself this that, um, you know, when you get these shoes, like understand what it means. Understand what it represents. Um, Add new context and flavor to it, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. And then I think for the future, I would say like don't ever lose sight of this attitude and spirit that are coming from like the reason you like this shoe to begin with is because it broke boundaries. The reason you
Mm-hmm.
like the shoe to begin with is because it deviated from norms and like what people thought was accessible or like should be a standard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I truly believe stuff like that, music, this shoe, and other things in my life had like resounding impact in who I am today. So yeah, I think I would have told myself to make sure to not let go of it. Although I'm pretty sure I told myself at the time because I have not let go of that energy and that spirit and what I do and how I live now.
No, man, yo, perfectly said. Thank you so much for jumping on, man. Long time coming, as I said.
Thank you, bro. No, sorry, it's been a while. At the same time, it's good. You've been building up. I see you out there, and then I'm happy to share news from my side. So
No,
yeah,
yeah, I
all
mean,
the nice updates. It's easier to talk about stuff when you've done a bunch of cool things.
no, I mean, look, you've done so much, and I love seeing what you've been doing, what you're going to be doing. Very, very excited. Hopefully, we catch, so I don't know, wrestling or something together one day. When you're in the city.
I'm down for that more than I am the pickleball
No,
invite.
yeah, yeah, definitely. we,
Catching wrestling would be fun. I'm sure you knew other people at Extra Butter at Lower East Side when I was there, but there were a few wrestling fans,
Mhm.
and it'd be cool to get together with them and all go see like a Raw or like one of the events. It'd be
I mean,
fun.
we can go to Jamaica and watch House of Glory, like do it real roots, like some
Maybe.
backyard wrestling, bro. Like it's
Honestly,
crazy.
like live wrestling is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's for another whole podcast.
Yeah, yeah. All right, yo. Thank you for jumping on. And for everybody out there, you know what we say each week: wear your kicks.
Yes.
Peace.